What is going on, everybody? You are here on The Link. That's right. It is another Tuesday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, and we are here to give you another fabulous show. Let me first say shout out to Pyro Media and APLA for bringing us this wonderful production that we call The Link. And of course, shout out to the CDC who gives us the money to make it all happen, honey, because that's how we pay our bills.
The sponsors.
That part, okay? Now, the melanin bill we pay ourselves because we're cute, but that's another story. So let me introduce my co-host, my regular co-host, Mr. Kai Smith. Kai, what's going on?
Hi, everybody. Kai Smith here, program coordinator for our CDC-funded programs, Healthy Him. I love that I get to be right behind it.
Okay.
Right.
This is so hard. Everyone, it's flipped. Don't worry. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone had a great weekend and a great Juneteenth and Father's Day. I got to spend it with my dad, so I'm in a little bit of a good mood. So
awesome sauce. I'm mad that I missed your dad, that I couldn't meet.
I know.
Dad.
I brought him to the office and you weren't here.
I'm so upset about that. But moving on, that's another. We'll talk about that later. There'll be many more chances to meet Kai yet. Okay. We have the pleasure of having our guest host, Mr. Dwayne Sarid, on camera with us today, filling in for Ty, who is out sick today. So we send you love, Ty. We hope that you get better and that you feel better, and hopefully you'll be back next week. But Dwayne, how are you doing today?
Hey, Dwayne.
Hey, I'm good, y'all. This is my first time. I'm very excited to be here. Thank y'all for having me. The weekend was good. I hope y'all had a good weekend as well, and I'm just happy to be here.
I'm excited.
Can you tell us what your title is and what program that you're with?
Who are you?
Right. Okay, hold on. Who I be? You know who I be. I am Dwayne Sarid. I am a prevention training specialist for the Networks team. Now, we are a new program at APLA Health, which will work around HIV testing, and not just for, the usual men who have sex with men. And
don't call us out like that.
I mean, I'm just saying, we got some sprinkles on there, because now we do women too. We got women, we got the girls and the squirrels and everything in between.
Come on, and that's really huge news, especially for APLA Prevention Department, because there has been so much request and inquiry in regards to services for women. So the fact that we will now be able to service women with HIV testing and STI screenings is really, really amazing through Network. So glad to have you here and have you representing. As y'all know, I'm your favorite prevention training specialist over here at Swab and Chill, Daniel J. There is no other. It's just okay? But I want to bring on our guest today because today we are going to be talking to a youthful generation. Last week we had Pride Then. We talked to Director of Prevention and Sexual Health Services, Terry Smith, and he gave us insight on what Pride was like in the beginnings, in a generation of yesteryear. And so today we're going to be talking with some youthful people of today's generation, some millennials and Gen Zers, and talk about Pride. But before we get into that conversation, we cannot go and leave you without the What's Poppin'. But I want them on this segment because I want to know what they think about What's Poppin'. So first and foremost, we're going to have Eric Devante, who is an amazing blogger, social media influencer, has gone through the Healthy Him program, has been an ambassador of the Healthy Him program, and is just out here doing the work. He has a wonderful, successful podcast called The World According to Eric, as well as a radio show called The Get Right, which he co-hosts with his co-host Kelvin Unique. And in addition, we also have prevention training specialist of Project Impact. You've seen him on The Plug. You've seen him here on The Link, as well as The Link Latinx, Mr. Nigel Herrera. So if you can bring them on so that we can meet them and get into it.
Round of applause. Some of my favorite people.
Woo! I feel like we need a studio audience at this point.
Okay.
Hi.
How's it going? What's going on? How's the day? It's Tuesday. Are you feeling good? You're looking good. The melanin bills are paid.
Okay, it is.
Period.
Well, we're going to get right into our What's Poppin' segment. And the first thing on the docket, honey, the first thing on my mind, there was a huge article that went out, I believe, within the last couple of days. There was an Atlanta IKEA that is currently under fire because they sent out a menu for their employees to enjoy Juneteenth. And on this menu was watermelon, fried chicken, and macaroni and cheese. And there were a few employees that said, you know what, this is hella racist. Okay, this is problematic. I'm not doing this. And several of the IKEA employees actually did not come into work the next day because they were upset and, of course, protesting the fact that IKEA just missed it. Now, IKEA did put out a statement saying that they apologized, that they did miss, the mark on this one. They thought that these things were a part of a traditional Black dinner
No, they didn't.
food option.
Of course they did.
But they do apologize to the employees and to all of those who have been offended. And I want to kind of hear what you guys have to say about this. And we'll start with Eric. What do you feel about this?
So, I mean, as someone who goes up for a fried chicken, macaroni and cheese combination, I'm offended. And I'm actually exhausted with this. I'm exhausted. Like, it's just, there's always, like, in my opinion, this race baiting that happens. These corporations say that they're progressive and competent, and they continuously drop the ball. And it's just like, is it intentional? After a while, when you start to see a bunch of problematic things happening, you're like, is it intentional? Like, do you want to rise out of me? Do you want me to live up to this narrative of the angry Black person, the angry Black man or woman? I mean, it's disgusting. And, I'm always looking to quit a job that I don't like. So I want to win back that job. I want to win back.
What about the rest of you? What are your thoughts? Nigel, Kai, Dwayne, what would you have done if you were an employee on that day and saw the menu? Like, would you have been upset? Would you have rolled your eyes? Or would you have been one of the people to speak up and be like, hell no, this is not it?
Well, it's funny because I worked for a certain bank. And during that time, they had like a
Please don't mention that bank.
I'm not gonna mention the name. I'm not gonna mention the name. I'm not gonna mention the name. No, but they had it was like a Black inspiration type of meeting with all the Black members that were working under this financial institution, and they literally had almost to the T the exact same menu. So it was fried chicken, it was greens, it was macaroni and cheese, it was lemonade, and they had Kool-Aid, y'all.
I mean,
I've been in that experience, and at the time, I said something, but I was the only one, and everybody else was kind of looking at me crazy. Now, did I take a plate home? Yes, I did.
Okay, free food. That has nothing to do with it.
You sound like me saying that I don't support Chick-fil-A, but I've eaten Chick-fil-A. I just didn't pay for it.
Right.
That's right. Somebody bought it for me, and I ate it, and it did not give what it was supposed to have gave for moi. Nigel, what about you? What do you think about it? Would you have been one of those people to speak up, or would you kind of just take your plate and roll your eyes and went home?
Yeah, I feel like I would have just been really confused. I feel like they were trying to make it kind of like one of those Cinco de Mayo things where they're like, oh, let's just have tacos and asada, but there's a lot more context to Juneteenth than Cinco de Mayo, so that's really, really poor choices are made right there. So, because there's a lot of weight to that day as opposed to Cinco de Mayo, which is nobody really cares about. So it's yeah, it's a no from me.
And just in case some of you are watching who may not know why it's problematic, let me explain to you this one wonderful thing. So when we talk about soul food within the Black community, soul food is obviously food for the soul, but a lot of the dishes that have become staples for soul food really go all the way back to slavery, and it becomes a topic on what they were given during slavery. They were given the scraps of what the master and his family were eating in the house, and they had to make do with those scraps. That's why you have things like chitlins and pig feet and hog maws and all of this type of thing,
which you should not eat.
And then for everyone who wants context on watermelon, what people don't know is in the South after slavery, a lot of slaves, their early way of making their own living was having watermelon farms. They were growing watermelon. So the way that they devalued watermelon after slavery, so Jim Crow era, is by making it a Black item. Only Black people like it. It's a heathenist item. So a lot of times when you see that idea of watermelon and Black people, it comes from a really racist history as well. And because of that, there were people who weren't able to make livings because watermelon was for Black people only. So you're adding on this whole what was allowed to eat when you were in slavery, and then after slavery, it's this whole concept of people weren't able to make a living off of a product that came from Africa that they were trying to make their livelihoods, and now they weren't having it. I mean, for me, we know if I would have been there, screaming, It would have been, and Billy Joe actually put a comment, how come they're not talking to Black staff? And I think that's the huge issue is for some reason, corporations don't know how to work with Black people or don't know how to show Black people that they're actually allies. And it seems so weird that we can't just say, what do you as a Black community need? And they just think watermelon chicken.
See, now that's the other thing too. I don't necessarily think it's that they don't know how to work with Black people. I feel like they just don't want to do the work to work with Black people. They don't want to ask the questions. They just want to be like, oh, here. Like, it's just like how we're waiting for reparations, you know?
But I will say this. I think, and I do want to move on because I don't want to spend too much time here, but I will say that a lot of times when we look at these corporations and we look at the people in these higher up positions, I do feel like they think they know and they go with what they think they know because of what they've seen, because of what they've read, or because of the one token Black friend that says, oh no, yeah, Black people do love watermelon and chicken and it's fine. And then they get this narrative like, oh, then everyone must love it. And so I do think that we as a community, specifically in the workplace, have a responsibility to have some solidarity and to speak up when these things happen. So I applaud those employees who spoke up. I applaud those employees who, said, you know what, we're not doing this. We're not coming into work. This is an issue. And hopefully IKEA in Atlanta, y'all got the message and you won't make such stupid decisions in the future. And you might invite some Black folks in the decision-making rooms. I'm just saying. But moving on to another topic, Kai, I know that you had a subject in regards to something that you are very close to and very joyful about.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce our next What's Poppin' topic?
So if you know me, you know I love Black women. I love to celebrate Black women. I love Black women whenever we can. If you also know what's happening, the Olympics, Tokyo Olympics, were postponed. They're coming up. We just saw the track Olympic trials over the weekend, and the name on everyone's lips is Sha'Carri Richardson. Mm-hmm. She is now the fastest woman in America, broke a world record, 21 years old, and so unapologetically Black. You're getting a lot of references to her being very FloJo-like. You were seeing long nails. She had this bright orange hair. I've seen her in bright blue hair, and she's a proud lesbian. And don't we love to see it during Pride Month? It's Pride. I mean, we love to see it. I'm a huge track person. I love to watch Olympic sports, things like that. I talked about Simone Biles, so I've been watching all Olympic stuff. Watching this young woman run and be so just unapologetically herself and let people know I am the greatest has been, I think, for me, the most amazing thing. Because as I mentioned, my dad was here. And the first thing my dad says, being from an older Black generation, that's not very ladylike, the fact that she's boasting and stuff like that. And I said to him, if this was a man, you would have no problem with it. And he was like, yeah, but this is a woman. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. So good for her. So Sha'Carri Richardson, if you're out there watching, which you maybe not, but if you do, just know
she might be.
We don't send it to her. We don't send it to her.
Keep doing it. Keep letting people know that you are amazing and win. I can't wait to watch you win that gold medal during the Olympics. So how does everyone else feel about seeing this, right? Because oftentimes we see it on social media. We see girls with the colored wigs and the long nails, and it's not an issue. Now we have someone who's literally the best in her sport, dominating, and it's an issue, and people are like, oh, well, I don't think the hair or the nails are appropriate. What does everyone else feel on that?
I think for me, my biggest issue, shout outs to her. I love to see anyone live in their power and do what they've been anointed to do. I think my biggest issue in regards to the Black community specifically is the hypocrisy. We scream support Black women, we scream Black empowerment, but at the same time, you have examples of men talking about how, oh, she's very masculine. Are we sure that she's a biologically born woman? We have people talking about her aesthetic. We have all these things that are so divisive, and it's coming from people that are oppressed and marginalized within our own community. I'm like, y'all are so ass backwards and toxic. In 2021, my expectation is so much higher, but I need to drop the bar. Last round of Limbo Low, because the girls never show up to the party correctly. So for me, it's like, why is it that we can support someone on their rise, but once they've hit that point, it's now our job to break them down. And it happens with everyone. It happens with Meg Thee Stallion. It happens with Sha'Carri. It happens with so many talented people. And I don't know what that is. And I don't know how we expect other communities to embrace, affirm, and support us. Not that we need that if we can't even do it for ourselves. So, she's going to continue to do what she's supposed to do because it's an anointing. But I just expect us as a whole to do a lot better.
Yeah, I support her in number one, being an athlete first. You know, at the end of the day, whatever nails she wears, whatever hair she got, whatever her makeup is looking like, that has nothing to do with the sport. It's so secondary. It's probably all the way down at Z as far as I'm concerned. But let's focus on the fact that she's an amazing athlete. You know, the packaging that comes in is her choice and her decision, and she looks beautiful at the end of the day. Okay. I also think it's kind of ironic that we have Sha'Carri coming into a space when they just Sha'Carri coming into the space, right when they've greenlit a FloJo biopic, which Tiffany Haddish is supposed to head in and star in.
She's supposed to do what?
She's gonna be FloJo.
She's gonna be FloJo.
She ain't running.
Miss Tiffany Haddish is gonna be FloJo.
She ain't running.
But Sha'Carri, I want to say that I definitely support her. I agree with Eric in regards to the community portion of it. But we have it both with men and women. You know, when a gay man is out there doing what he does, it becomes about his sexuality. When a woman's out there when a black woman's out there being great and doing what she does, it becomes about how she looks and how she acts, and you know the respectability politics of it all. So I say, Sha'Carri, keep on running, boo boo. Keep on running. Keep on winning. Keep on being fast, and win these medals, honey. Right? Win these medals. But before we end our What's Poppin' segment, I do want to talk about this one thing, which I know the girls are going to go in on. So, old school rapper Trick Daddy then came under fire because he made a comment that Beyonce can't sing.
Amongst other things.
And in the middle of him saying that Beyonce can't sing, honey, the Hive went in and they went to his restaurant's reviews and tanked his restaurant reviews. His restaurant went from a 5-star or 4-star review all the way down to like a 2.6 because the Hive was just doing reviews just because they had never gone to the restaurant, whatever the case may be. I want to know your thoughts briefly on what do you think about what he said?
I know blasphemy.
I'll let Dwayne go first. Go for it.
I just think it's funny. I mean, I know Trick didn't mean no harm by what he was trying to say. He just felt like he could, you know, speak his piece, and he, as long as he wasn't disrespectful or calling her a bunch of bees, or you know, talking about Jay and her situation, he thought that it would be okay. But, you know, the Beehive is always going to be aggressive. They're almost as aggressive as the Barbs, in my opinion, if not more aggressive. So I just don't ever speak on Beyonce if you're not.
Oh, you're gone.
But you're back.
And you're back.
Don't ever speak on Beyonce if you're not ready to like get that backlash of some kind. If it's not, I love her, they're taking it as shade, and you just better watch out.
Nigel, what do you think about this whole situation? I know you got thoughts.
I mean, Stan Twitter and culture is really scary. I think the Beehive is like the third scariest like Stan group, I think, on Twitter. Like, I would never ever say anything remotely like negative about Beyonce because I don't want to get doxxed. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my home, social security, livelihood.
Okay.
Like the stories about the Beehive are kind of crucial. Like they go in, and my thing is, as fans or stans or whatever you want to call yourself, y'all have never met this woman. Some of y'all have never. Most of y'all don't know nothing about this woman, and y'all are ready to just tear someone's life apart because they said they don't like her. Now, in regards to Trick Daddy should have shut his mouth. Okay, he should have just shut his yuck mouth, went over there, sat down in the middle of Miami, and had a conversation with Trina to get her career back on, and talk about what song she's gonna play on this verses. But he should have just kept his mouth just all the way closed with all that gold in it. Eric, what you got to say? Give us the last point on this topic before we go to the next section.
I mean, it was absolute blasphemy first. However, what I will say is that this generation has lost the ability to be free thinkers, and I don't like that, especially somebody who's in the media. And I feel like I have to pick certain things carefully because I don't want my career to get canceled before it takes off. But, you know, I mean, Beyonce is, to me, the standard of an entertainer for today's generation. But going as far as like dropping his rating on his restaurant page, is like, oh, come on. Like, we have to open up the space for people to authentically express themselves and think. We cannot all share the same opinions at all times because we are not monoliths. We are not replicates of each other. It's a lot. It's a lot. But Trick Daddy, baby, you should know that your career is on its last leg. So for you to ever be so bold, props to
What
that,
career?
man.
It's
My
gone.
point. My point.
Oh, you talking about the food career? Okay, because it's not his music.
Regionally, I think the girls still go up, but I'm from New York, not Miami.
Yeah, from his music back in the 90s, and it's featuring Trina. So is it really him or is it Trina?
Well, we'll end on this note. Trick Daddy, the trick's on you. Tricks are for kids. Shut your mouth, because the Bayhive is alive and well. Moving on. That's going to be the end of our What's Poppin' segment. I want to move into our main topic, which is, of course, a conversation with these wonderful young faces to talk about Pride. This month is National Pride Month, and every episode thus far has been about Pride. Like I said last week, we talked about Pride then, talking about Pride from a generation that came before us. Now we're talking about Pride now. What is it? What does it look like for a younger generation? Are the issues the same? Are the struggles the same? And so I want to open up the conversation with this question, which is, what has the journey been getting you into a Pride space while being a part of the LGBTQIA community? Daniel, what the hell does that mean? Stop reading the cue cards. So basically, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you guys. Like, you guys are all, well, I'm going to say you because I'm a little older than y'all. But you guys are all very young, thriving, energetic. What has Pride and the journey of who you are within the community been? And I want to start with Eric.
I mean, it's been an interesting journey. It's gonna look differently for everybody because it's hard. Like nobody's journey looks the same, but like that road to acceptance is a struggle for everybody. At least that's how I believe it to be. And I think once I came out at the age of 15, 16, and I told my mom, at that point, everyone else was kind of disposable to me in the sense of like, my biggest fear was that my mom would reject me because that is my biggest person on this earth. And then once she was able to get over it, it was really just like, everybody else is like, if you love me, cool, I'm with you. And if not, babe, hit the streets. So I personally love being open. I love expressing my femininity and mixing it with my masculinity and just, being able to walk down the street in crop tops. And, sometimes you get the strange looks from people that haven't advanced. And sometimes kids are looking at you sideways. But I love stuff like that because I want kids to see that there are people that may look like what you're into when you get older. So ultimately, my pride is just, it's a reflection of me and who I am in every space that I'm in. And that doesn't mean that I'm overly flamboyant. It doesn't mean that I'm overcompensating. It just means that I'm showing up as I am. So pride is my existence and I love it here.
Awesome. Nigel, I want to ask you, because you're fresh out of college, as we see, congrats graduate in the back, in the background. You obviously grew up in a time where the LGBTQIA plus community is a little more accepted. I mean, we're not where we want to be, obviously. We're still fighting for things, but what has that journey of growing up in that time been for you, knowing what Pride started out as?
I think for me, like anyone, it was like a slow, uphill battle, getting to know like myself and being comfortable with who I am and like putting myself in Pride settings. I went to Pride for the first time when I was 18, and it was such an experience. It was really overwhelming and really scary for like a lot of reasons. But it was nice to be around people that like I was pretty sure wouldn't judge me for the most part. For me, Pride growing up, I've seen a lot more acceptance in like social circles and stuff. Like being in college, I was able to really cultivate Pride, find people who accepted me fully for like all facets and aspects of me. So it's just been something that's like been slowly building. And I feel like, well, for me, my first experience of Pride was more of like seeing it is more of like it was a hedonistic kind of thing where people were just kind of like drinking a lot and like going out and kind of like, I guess, separating from what I feel like what Pride used to be, which was more about empowerment. So it was really interesting to see that when I was growing up. But I feel like now I've gotten a lot more agency about it, and I just kind of like go out my own to do like advocacy or like promoting like important things or trying to have discussions with people, because there are a lot of LGBTQ plus people with some ass backward ideas too. So we got to educate. Some people from the older generation got it hella wrong. So
Now, Kai, you just kind of transitioned over into the 30s crowd.
I did.
You now in the dirty 30s. How do you feel kind of experiencing that transition as well? Like being a youth, you know, you talked about a couple of weeks ago what your first Pride was like, you know, the reason why you went and what you got. But now that you are getting older and into another decade, what is that like for you? How do you view it? Has it changed for you? Is it the same?
Yeah, I think for me, especially recently in this past year or so, Pride isn't about the festival anymore, right? Normally, especially here in Los Angeles, California, whenever you think of Pride season, you think of like West Hollywood Pride, Long Beach Pride. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go have fun. For me, in this last year, there's been a lot more reflection that's been going on about why we even are having Pride, like what our rights are. And I find myself having more gratitude, but I also find myself wanting to be more to myself, right? Like to be out in the community. And it could be partially because of COVID, because we know I'm terrified to go outside every day of the week. But it's also, for me, it's my personal queer community is the kind of the community that I like to surround myself for Pride. And it is wonderful and beautiful to be out and with a lot of people, but kind of like what Nigel said, Pride can be really, really overwhelming, whether it's your first time going or you've gone every year for the past like 30 years. Pride can be a lot. And I think for me, I'm learning that the best way for me to celebrate Pride is to do it kind of on a smaller scale and more of a reflective scale. I don't know if that's because I'm getting older or just because I don't do well in large groups.
Dwayne, what about you? What does Pride mean for you? And what has your experience been with Pride kind of being in this post-millennial era?
Well, I mean, what Pride means to me is just really being unapologetically you, and honestly saying like screw the rules. I feel like that's one of the best things about being a part of the LGBTQIA community in the first place is the fact that we can do what we want. Like it was kind of similar to what Eric was saying. Like, you know, you can play with the masculine and the feminine energies. One day you might want to walk out with like a crop top and some coochie cutters. And the other days you might just want to put on like a sweatsuit and a do-rag and be like, what's up? Like, you know, scratch your balls a little bit. Like, so that's what Pride means for me. It's just like freedom, just freedom of expression, freedom of like everything in between. And what Pride means now, honestly, I think, in comparison to what it meant back in the day, it's kind of just like, this is a big old party. I'm gonna say that. It's not so like progressive anymore as far as like moving us forward into something new. It's kind of just like, you see me, I see you, we see each other. You wanna have sex? Maybe. Like,
it's always that maybe.
And so I'm kind of over that. I just wish it was a little bit more organized as far as like what is the end goal with Pride now. I feel like there's no goal here. There's no purpose other than to be visible. It's like, and I feel like we have a lot of visibility now, but what are we doing with it?
And that's a perfect segue into my next question, because when Terry was here last week, Terry did a beautiful job of really getting us to a space of understanding that, you know, Pride in generations before us, you know, like when it began back at Stonewall, people were fighting for their lives. You know, it was at the height of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. You know, people were dying left and right. These marches were people who were sick, who didn't, you know if they were going to see tomorrow. And they were fighting for not only their right to be, but their right to live. You know, living it like it was their last, because it quite possibly could have been. So I want to have an open question to all of you. Like, what are some of the struggles that you feel the LGBTQIA community today has? Obviously, we're not in the same space that we were before, fighting for our lives in regards to like HIV. Medicine has brought us a very long way. But there are still some things that we do experience that we still are battling. You know, trans individuals, specifically Black trans women, are being killed at an alarming rate. We still see on social media with, you know, support Tyler, with homophobia still being very large and rampant in a lot of parts of the world. So even though we're not in the same space as we were then, what are some of the struggles that you feel we're facing and that are important for us to really bring up during Pride season?
I can answer that. I feel, and this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, it's like self-acceptance for ourselves, because even though we may be open and out of the closet, a lot of us still struggle with the heteronormative things that, like, as a man, you still have to act a certain type of way and like feel or not feel actually to be considered a real man. You know, so I feel like that would definitely be one that we still struggle with today that I wish we would address more with some therapy and some exploration.
How do you think that we can address that in a pride space? Like, how do you think pride as a movement can address that particular issue?
Honestly, do some non-binary things. Like, try on some different clothes. Like, if you're usually in, like, you know, a masculine presenting attire, try something different. Try a crop top. I'm not saying you got to put on a whole skirt, but to try some, like, ease into it. Like, see if you like it. Like,
wear a kilt.
Okay,
or just paint your
Wear a
nails.
kilt.
Yeah, like do something. Every little bit helps. Like, you know, not everything is gonna like. Nothing that you wear, do, or put on your nails is going to take away from the fact that, you know, you are who you are at the end of the day. It doesn't make you less of a man, whatever that means, or, you know, and it doesn't make you less or more gay.
What about the rest of you? What are some other struggles that the community today still has, and how can we address it?
For me, I think the separation of issues and the lack of understanding around intersectionality. And I'm speaking specifically in the Black community because, you know, like in the height of Black Lives Matter, we had so many things going on, and there was still a lot of abuse for the LGBTQIA community. And when it was brought to the forefront, people were like, yeah, we need to focus on one issue right now, and that's something that needs to be put on the back burner. But it's like, you want me to march in solidarity with y'all as a Black person, but as I get beat up by fellow Black people, that's not an issue right now. So when are we going to deal with it when 50% of us have been wiped off? You know what I'm saying? So it's just that hierarchy thought process in handling certain situations that's extremely problematic.
Kai, what do you feel the biggest thing that this generation of the community has contributed to the movement?
Oh, contributed to the movement. Ooh, change it up for me. So I will say, and this is more so the younger millennials and the older, who's after us? Gen Zers?
Yes.
Gen Zers.
So.
I will say
millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Alpha.
I'm getting so old. I was like, what are those young people called? Turns 30 all of a sudden. But no, I think especially with Gen Z, the conversation about your gender identity has been the most expansive it's ever been. I don't think growing up, you know, it was either gay, lesbian, and then there might have been a few trans people here and there, but they were a big deal if you had that. Now we're seeing so many more young people feeling comfortable and feeling safe enough to like have these conversations about their gender, about challenging the gender. And I will say Gen Zers, they are bullies, and like in the best possible way. They don't really have some of the social skills necessary, but that's a social media thing. But gosh, will they stand up and fight for whoever needs to be supported. So the younger generation, I will say probably a lot of what we see in the activism around trans people is a lot of it from millennials, and then, you know, our Gen Zers really, really kind of putting in the fight. So good job, young people.
I love it. Nigel, my last question is for you before we go to break. Because you are a Gen Zer, correct?
Yes. I think I'm like 2 years after the start. I think Gen Z starts at 96 or something. Yeah.
So as a Gen Zer, how do you feel that advocacy has changed as it pertains to pride and just the LGBTQIA community, and also, you know, being a person of color, being, you know, someone who's in that intersectionality that Eric talked about? How do you feel like it has changed for your generation in regards to advocacy?
I think that just the dissemination of information has just like significantly increased. We have far more access to a lot more education, resources, theory, and stuff that we can build off of and kind of like, you know, talk about, you know, I'm talking about acceptance, equality, diversity, intersectionality at younger ages so that we can like grow and, you know, make a more developed and equitable society. You know, there are a lot of people from past generations that don't have the language or the knowledge to be more progressive. And I think that we have all those resources. So I think, you know, moving forward will be a much more woke society as a whole. And I I'm really excited, in like 20 years when all these like old politicians die and just like we can take over, and I think it'll be great.
All right. Well, that's a wonderful way to end this segment. We're going to be right back with Dwayne, Eric, and Nigel to talk more about what Pride means today. But right after this wonderful commercial about STIs with a ambassador of old, Ronan Cuff. We'll be right back after this message.
Hey, I'm Novon. Welcome to Him Around Town. I'm a him. What if someone told you that you could take a daily pill to almost eliminate your chances of getting HIV? What if I told you that there is already a pill that does that? Now here's the real tea. Did you know that most insurances cover the cost with a small to no copay? Don't have insurance? That's okay. Here at APLA Health, we can help you find a program that will cover your costs. Pre-exposure prophylaxis, also called PrEP, is a once-a-day pill that does that very thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you are protected from other STIs, but hey, we get it. Sometimes things happen and we forget a condom, or one breaks. With PrEP, at least you know that you are protected from HIV. Now, let me be very, very real with you. Some people have mild side effects, but those usually disappear after 2 to 4 weeks. Okay. Now say you feel like you have been exposed to HIV from unprotected sex, needle sharing, or sexual assault. Did you know that if you take a
And we're back. So, y'all know how I do. I don't like to just judge over things because this is live and things happen. So we have technical issues. Obviously, that was not Ronan. That was Novon. But you can catch Novon next week. He's going to be here with us as we do our end of the month Pride celebration. He will be performing. So make sure you tune in next week, Tuesday, 4:30, right here on the link. And then you just give us grace and mercy for the technical issue that we have. Retrograde is happening, honey, and y'all already know Mars is whooping everybody's ass. Okay? So we're going to move right along into segment 2 of our main topic, which is Pride Now. And we talked a little bit, I believe Dwayne mentioned it a little earlier in the last segment, but I want to ask you all, and don't all jump to answer first. No, really, jump to answer first. Do you feel like Pride today is way more hedonistic than it should be?
Yes.
Definitely.
Explain. Give us your thought. Expound upon that.
Okay. I just didn't go further because I felt like but yes, just because I think it's more about our hormones right now than it is about like anything else, because I think being a part of this community is also like still having that fear of not knowing who is actually, in the community and who is just like staring a little too long. So I feel like Pride as an event has just become a safe space for everybody to look around, fish around. There's plenty of fish in the sea, but we don't know that because all the fish, a lot of the fish look like all the other fish.
Eric, what about you? Do you feel like Pride has become way too hedonistic?
I mean, I think that sex itself has been taboo for so long that I like the openness. I do. And, duality is a really good thing in most spaces.
True.
So, yes and no. I like to see people embracing that and, being open, whether it's like BDSM, I think I said that acronym correctly, or whatever the case may be, like let your freak flag fly. But I think that we also need to remember that it is a day of celebration and really honoring the stepping stones that were placed ahead of us. And it's tough because some of the girls are dense, and I think it's cool, but I do think we could kind of tone it down a bit, or at least reflect on something other than just our hormones.
Okay.
Or at least take it to our homes. Like,
yeah, that's
on the trees.
Can I speak to it a little bit as well?
You sure can.
Well, when I was talking about my first Pride and why I thought it was so overwhelming and scary, was because I was freshly 18 and there were just a lot of people just who felt entitled to my body when I was there, that were just groping me, grabbing me, touching me every which way, everywhere that I was going, just trying to walk around minding my own business. Also, I was dressed like super conservatively too. Like I was wearing like my little t-shirt and like my shorts that went to my knees. Like, like I wasn't like,
As long as you don't tell me that you had on a sweater, because then we would have to have a different conversation.
Well, I had one in my bag for later in case it got cold.
It got cold.
But it was just like building off of like the hedonistic aspect, like what Eric said, like let your freak flag fly, all that stuff. If you want to wear your harness, sure. But like, just because I'm there doesn't mean you're entitled to my body like that. And it was just like a really overwhelming experience for me being 18. And I don't think most people appreciate being like touched like that. I don't think in any context for the most part. I don't know. It could just be me. Maybe I'm, a sourpuss, but like it was just a lot.
I think that you bring up a good point though, Nigel. Like I've gone to many Prides. I'm 36. When I tell you I've done Pride, I have done Pride. And every time that I've ever gone, it is this energy of like, yes, this is my time to like let my freak flag fly. This is my time to like do all the things that I wouldn't do in my normal life. But I also think that it encompasses an energy where we lose sight of consent, and we lose sight of the fact that this is not my experience at Pride is not going to be the same as everyone else's, and everyone else's is not going to be the same as mine.
Exactly.
So I can't walk into this space, see a fine man, and then all of a sudden be like, I'm just going to rub on his body and rub on his chest and squeeze his booty just because we have Pride. You will still get punched in your face at Pride. I just want to let you know that. So don't do that to me. But and so much can. If you just ask, you just never know what you're going to get. That's what my grandmother always told me. She said, if you just ask, you never know what you're going to get. If you ask to squeeze my booty, I might give you 2 handfuls.
Okay.
I might, but ask me first.
Might have wanted you to do it, but if you don't ask, I don't want it.
Yeah. What about you, Kai? Do you think that Pride has become way too hedonistic, or are you just with the letting it flow how it flows?
I'm with Eric on this. We love it. We love it. We're sex positive here. We love it. But I think Nigel brings up, and for me, before you change the question on me, my thing was like, what do you think is the issue with Pride? And I think consent often goes out the window with Pride. And I feel like if we could take that moment to recognize, like, go out. If you want to be there with your little bandana, just tied around your leg, holding your junk, great. But don't go up to somebody and rub your body on them that you don't know without speaking to them first, right? Don't go up to someone that you think is attractive just because you've had a drink or two. You think now it's okay to, grab their dick, put your hand in their pants, to give them a kiss. That was one thing that's happened to me at Pride. Someone came up and kissed me, and I was like, whoa.
Don't act in person like you act on Grindr. Like, this is why.
Right?
Yeah. This is why. This is why it's such a problem.
So I think for me, it's that part of Pride is if we were sex positive, then we could be in the sense of like, yes, go out there and share your life. But consent has to be part of it. And I think that's where we're missing a lot of it, because Pride, like I said earlier, like Nigel said, it can be super overwhelming. Now imagine you're seeing a lot of things you've never seen before, and then all of a sudden a grown man or a grown person comes up to you who you've never met in your life, and you are 18 years old. You came and you said, I'm not going to dress sexy because I don't want to really be seen. I just kind of want to watch. Now you're all of a sudden dragged into it. It's a lot. And it can be really, really damaging for a lot of people. So I feel like for me is, be a freak. Be a freak every day of the week, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
I do it.
Ooh, Kai the rapper.
Look, but do it. But if you don't ask, if you don't give consent, if you don't have consent, then it's just, you're not a freak anymore. Now it becomes,
you're a
predator.
Yeah.
So that's it.
My next question is, where do you feel like Pride is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And for those of you that have been keeping up with the show, like I said, last week we talked about where Pride started, how it started, why it started. We've had discussion today about kind of where it is. Still has a very powerful meaning for everyone here on the panel. But where do you feel like Pride is moving to in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you feel the movement is taking us? Do you feel like there still is a movement?
I have an answer if everyone wants to think about this a little bit. Okay.
Eric's like, yes, because this is deep.
So I think what we're going to see is we're going to continue to see the festivals. Festivals aren't going away, especially now in the millennial Gen Z culture. We love a good festival, right? We love to go out, listen to our music and our cute little outfits, take our pictures, things like that. But what I do think is going to happen is we're going to lose sight of the reason for Pride for the festivals. But I think with what we've been seeing with social media, where people are really providing context to a lot of things, I think a lot of the Pride activity that we would like to see at the festival is now going to start happening on social media, kind of on a more digital platform. So I'm thinking that we might see the separation between the party of Pride and then like the essence of why we have Pride.
The advocacy.
Yeah, the advocacy. I think we're going to see probably that more on social media and kind of like in a more formal setting. But then when you're out during Pride Month, it's going to be the fun part of it.
Right.
So is it positive or negative? We'll have to wait and see. But I do think we're going to see more of a distinction as we go forward.
And Kaya, let me ask you real quick. What do you personally hope to see Pride kind of handle, tackle, or evolve into in the next 5 years?
I need Pride to be, and you know, there's always the condoms and things like that, but I need Pride to be more open with communities of color. In communities of color too.
Please.
Because we know, especially here in LA, we know one of our biggest prides tends to be in a more kind of white generalized area. We do have Compton Pride now. We do have Pride in more communities of color. So I'm excited to see those get big. And I hope that what we see is that we can have these huge prides in, you know, South Central, in Compton, stuff like that, where we're seeing a lot more Black and brown faces. And there's a celebration in that as well. So that's what I hope.
Nigel, what about you? Where do you feel Pride is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm hoping like advocacy and like critical discussion keeps moving forward, because I feel like in the last year or two, because of like Black Lives Matters and stuff like that, there's been a lot of really great discussion about like intersectionality, people of color being part of the queer community, the experience of being a queer person and a person of color. Because, you know, growing up queer and as a person of color, I feel like is inherently traumatic. It's like a balancing act that you constantly have to like, you know, put up these facades and like code switch and kind of like, you know, it's a lot. So I'm hoping like, because I know we haven't had like, I think a Pride parade. It's been like a Pride march, I think, for the last like 2 years in LA or something like that. So I'm hoping that we keep, you know, meeting and having solidarity and marching for like important issues, and we keep the discussions going in the next couple of years, which I definitely think is going to keep happening. So just trying to be optimistic.
Eric, what about you? Where do you feel Pride is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years, or what do you hope Pride evolves into in the next 5 to 10 years?
I echo a lot of what Nigel and Kai said. I do hope that they are more open in communities of color. Definitely. I am hoping that, I know people will continue to do the work, but I hope that, you know, I just wanted to feel more communal. Like, you know, I'm very pro-Black in my old age, just because you learn more about the world that you live in, so that you kind of build up a wall. But I do want us to get to a place where we can just exist as humans respectfully. And, you know, it's not a big issue about like, you know, you're taking my culture and then spinning it off on your own and kind of stripping it of its roots. Like, I want us to embrace each other without disrespecting each other and kind of like removing roots. But yeah, ultimately, I just want us to have fun and be safe. I know that, you know, the LGBTQIA will probably expand because every day more people are born. We learn more ways of life. So I don't really know what to expect. I just hope that it goes in a healthy direction.
Joanne, what about you? Where do you feel like Pride is moving to in the next 5 to 10?
Honestly, in the next 5, I feel like it'll definitely move in a place of more definitely more advocacy, because as we are actually continuing to like the fights on everything and really paying attention, and with eyes and ears being everywhere with these cell phones and iPads and things, I feel like it'll definitely be more of a statement. However, yeah, I just kind of echo what Kai was saying. Like during the day, it'll be more of like more about, you know, advocacy and the issues and things like that. But as the sun goes down, the clothes
come off.
Yeah.
The freaks come out at night. The freaks come out at night.
Look,
I
Mhm.
can't. I think one of the things that I feel is going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years with Pride, and you've all said it, it's the advocacy. I think that more people are going to be more robust in their educating themselves, educating those around them, and really digging into the things that we have to fix as a community as a whole. And I think that historically, and I think I said this last week too, historically, a lot of times when people think LGBTQIA, there's a white person that comes into their mind.
Yep.
gay man.
That's just it's a white gay man. When we think of trans, it's a black trans woman that comes to mind, but it's not a black trans woman that we necessarily want to support. It's not a black trans woman that we necessarily respect or that we necessarily want to embrace. And so my hope is that in the next 5 to 10 years, that the microaggressive embedded theologies of toxicity that cis-het individuals and cis-homo individuals have bred into, cisgender folks have bred into each other. I really hope that in the next 5 to 10 years, we start to do the work within our own communities. Black people holding Black people accountable in that intersectionality, brown people holding brown people within that sectionality, trans people holding trans people accountable within that intersectionality. Because as we come into understanding more of non-binary existence, non-binary identity, there's still a lot of kind of discourse within the trans community as it pertains to whether you're a binary trans person or a non-binary trans person. Are they really trans or are they not really trans? So I think that this next decade of Pride is really going to force us to fix the things that we have taken on in our communities from those that have oppressed us as a whole, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
As we end out this wonderful episode, it has been a wonderful discussion with all of you. I want to thank Eric, Nigel, and Dwayne for being here and having this discussion. But I want to ask one more question before we get into our final thoughts. And that question simply is, how are you going to rock out the rest of Pride Month? What are you going to do for you to celebrate your Pride as this month comes to a close? Kai, let's start with you. I mean, I'm coming to you.
So for me I'm going to continue just being myself. And I said this, and everyone, if you don't know, I was raised by my dad. My dad was a single parent. So I love my dad. I'm obsessed with my dad. So having my dad over this weekend, because it's the first time I've seen him in 2 years, I got my dad, a 6'2" cisgendered Black man who is from South Carolina, who holds some of the most problematic kind of ideology that I've ever heard. And we've had a lot of discussion and education. We watched Drag Race together. So yeah, it was a huge moment because this was the first conversation my dad and I sat down where we really had the conversation about why some of his anti-trans statements are problematic, why him calling men sweet is problematic, why him seeing someone who might present a certain way and him just assuming he knows their gender can be problematic. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going into my own household, my own family, and kind of reworking and going through some of the negative thoughts and mindsets that are there. So
I think that's awesome.
My dad did great, everyone.
Yes,
my
dad.
I love
Nigel,
that.
what about you? How are you going to celebrate the rest of your Pride Month?
I think for me, I'm just gonna continue to support queer people. I love June because there's always wonderful queer artists that put out like music, television. So I'm gonna just make sure the girls get their coin. I'm gonna run the streams up, buy the concert tickets because now everything's reopening again, and just supporting queer people, and particularly queer people of color. So that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of the month.
Yes, Dwayne, what about you?
Oh, you just threw it out there. Okay,
I did.
No, but I'm gonna continue to be me. Like I know I look very like masculine presenting right now, but I like to flow in and out of the genders. I like to do everything, any and everything. So I'm just gonna continue to be that example and continue to just like post myself and wear that confidence on my sleeve, on my chest.
On your heels.
Okay. Period. Tell the people. Okay. And yeah, hopefully I am doing us a good service by being a positive role model for the new generation, the Generation Z and Alpha. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking to you now.
How are you going to be celebrating the rest of your Pride Month?
Continue to exist, because
Yeah.
that is a lot of the work, openly existing. And have the conversations with my family, and also be open to be myself. Like Kai, I also watched Pose with my mom, and that was eye-opening. And then also just support the girls. And when I say that, I mean everybody in the LGBTQIA community, and not to misgender. You know what I mean when I say the girls. Like,
Gender neutral.
Okay.
when you see other people in the community, you don't have to shade them for what they may not have. You don't have to break them down because they don't reach your standard of what you feel like a person should be at that point in life. Like, just embrace them. If you see somebody and you think they look cute, tell them, and not because you expect them to affirm you back, but because it makes people feel good. Like, just give a little love. It goes a long way. So yeah, that's the plan.
Eric said, "Don't be a hater."
Okay.
That's it.
Put your haterade in the pantry, saving for somebody who really deserves it. I'm going to spend the rest of my Pride Month the way that I spend most of my life, which is showing up as authentically and honestly as I possibly can, standing in my truth and being an example to people that it is possible to live fully in your truth and to say F everybody else at the end of the day. I think that when we stand in our truth, we draw the people that we need and that we deserve into our lives. So I'm going to continue to spread love. I'm going to continue to spread kindness. I'm going to continue to give a nice little nasty read when I need to. I'm going to stand in my truth. With these last few minutes, for our final thoughts, I want each of you to give the people who are going to watch this either in the replays or who are watching now, what encouragement can you give to the next generation of those who need a pride? What encouragement do you want to leave them with? And we'll start with Nigel.
Oh, putting me on the spot. Okay. I think for me, the biggest sentiment I want to leave for anyone for Pride in the future is don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask that person out. I'm a go-getter, so just shoot your shot, go out there, do the thing. You never know where you end up. More often than not, you'll probably end up succeeding. So,
boom.
Oh, I'm sitting there like, what great advice for Nigel to give. Mine is go at your own pace, right? Whatever you feel like is right for you now, great. You could go to one extreme one day and say, you know what, I'm going to go full skirt, crop top, paint my nails, full face of makeup, get my hair done.
Where's my lace front?
Right? And then the next day you might say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable doing that anymore. And that's okay. So go at your own space or pace. Pace.
Dang, Kai took mine. But what I was gonna say was, do it. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of everybody's. Do it while you're afraid too. Just try stuff. I mean, the only person that is telling you realistically, and the only person that can really limit you is yourself. So if you feel like if somebody told you back in the day that you couldn't get your nails done or that they couldn't be hot pink, I was gonna say another type of pink, but hot pink. And you just have lived with that your whole life, take this month to really be like, you know what? I'm gonna get this one pinky nail hot pink and the rest of them can be clear or something. Just do whatever it is that the limits that you think you have, throw those out the window and do it anyway. Because you can always change it the next day.
Yeah, I would say that your experience matters. You matter, and that you are valid. Every day that you have breath in your body, there is a reason. So, just exist in your truth and don't necessarily look for people to affirm you, because I feel like all of us are learning to love ourselves, and sometimes people aren't able to give themselves the loves that you're looking for from them. So, just be your biggest supporter and do what you do. And those who are meant to gravitate to your energy will come along.
And my final thought for you guys today is simply this. Look in the mirror, look at the person in that mirror and tell them you are awesome and amazing. And yes, it is a lifestyle choice because you are. Every other role is taken. You are the only you on this planet, and you are perfect for the role that you fit, for this world, for your community, for your family, and for your friends. Make sure you guys tune in next week on the link right here on Facebook and YouTube at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time as we end our Pride Month with a Pride extravaganza celebration. We'll have DJs, we'll have performances, drag performances, singers, and we're going to have a great good time. So make sure that you join us again. I want to thank Eric, Nigel, and Dwayne for being here on this episode today. We could not have done it without you, so thank you so very much. And for those of you watching, make sure that you follow us on all social media. You can follow Healthy Him on Instagram, and make sure that you're following the APLA Prevention Department page on Facebook and YouTube. Other than that,
wait, hold on. Also follow the networks.apla on Instagram. Thank you very much.
It's new.
It's new. And if you or someone that you know is in need of an HIV test, an at-home HIV test, make sure that you hit us up at Swab and Chill at swabandchill@apla.org, or give us a call at 323-329-9713.
Or join us Thursday.
Or this Thursday. Make sure you drop by from 3 to 6. We'll be giving out kits, and you'll have the first 20 people to show up will get a $25 gift card to Target. All right? Until then, I have been your moderator for this wonderful episode, Daniel J. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.